Yeah, on to our next session with Vijay Sukthankar, our next speaker, who would be speaking on what beyond cloud. Just a small brief about Vijay. He is the cloud leader at IBM India, and Vijay leads the cloud technology enablement and helps customers with initial technical assessment. He holds multiple patents in the area of distributed computing systems. He is a cloud evangelist and has spoken at various international conferences like ACM, Cloud Camp, IEE conference on cloud computing and distributed systems. So now I hand over this podium to Vijay, who would be talking about more on cloud. Thank you.
Thanks, Durga. It's not really on a good spot to talk after the cloud economic stuff, because what I'm going to talk to you is assuming that already the whole enterprise is cloud enabled, what you can see beyond that. So I just took this topic basically because I thought most of the conferences I have been are like what are the cost economics, how to enable an enterprise to go into the cloud. So I thought, okay, let me give you a view, my view on what happens if an enterprise is cloud enabled. The whole, what you see is the ubiquitous way of looking at the whole cloud. So what's next? We are talking about an organizational transformation. We are going to look at a cloud from a perspective where things are very centralized. You have access to a large bit, petabytes, terabytes of data with you, and what you can do with it. Sorry. You will see a lot of innovation on IT. If you look at it, the cloud, what my colleague Vamsi talked in the morning on the service management, service automation, this have been present in the whole cloud arena for the last 2-3 years. But the way it has matured from the time when the whole infrastructure as a service was being looked as a cloud to the business process as a service, the way folks are now looking at what services I can build on top of the existing cloud, what automation can I bring into it. So a lot of innovation is happening specifically on the IT and what this can do for us. Most of the enterprises archive their data. So if you go to any enterprise, any CIO, he will talk of pushing the data out and to a tape or to a disk and forgetting about that data. And data can go around, mandatory, some of the emails as per the rules have to be kept for multiple number of years. And what that happens to the data? How can you mine that data? How can you get the data to become slightly intelligent for you? Can give you more insights into what is happening in your enterprise. That's more important. And that's what be quite a focus of my presentation today. So look at the days, early 2000s, 2001, 2002, when service-oriented architecture was a buzzword. People were talking about it. People were trying to embrace it, trying to look. Most of the services industry in India were trying to position SOA, SOA skilled, SOA architects as most of the stuff. So from that, it became a mainstream. From mainstream, now it's like having a service-oriented architecture skills or having most of those skills is a de facto stuff. Cloud, which is still in its novice state, people are still crawling, still trying to stand up and attain the skills, what to do with service automation, attain the skills, what I can do with it, what innovations can I bring it. It will lead into a mainstream. Right now, as I call it, it's a technology which is it's a newly mainstream technology, very hyped up stuff where people are still trying to adopt it. So next generation, millennials enterprises will credit the cloud as a background infrastructure. Facebook bought something, Instagram, for $1 billion. Nobody knows whether it's really a $1 billion buy, why Facebook bought it. But there is, the entrepreneurs will look at it, will not talk about it, whether it's going to be, it's hosted on cloud, whether it's scalable, elastic. We will assume for all the reasons that the IT infrastructure, what my application is using, is cloud enabled. People will think beyond economics. People will think that, people will start thinking that I don't want cloud only for economic benefits given. I don't want a cloud for the benefit it gives me on capital expenditure to moving it to an operational expenditure. I don't want to move from I don't want to go and discuss whether infrastructure as a service is better, platform as a service is better, or software as a service is better. I don't want to start a thing wherein folks will start looking at it, entrepreneurs will start looking at it, what is cheaper, what is not cheaper. That discussion will be an over. So what's newly possible? What things can come, what things can transform this for us to understand that, okay, cloud is ubiquitous, now how we can exploit this whole stuff. So what's most different? What's most different which is going to come in the near future? Data centralization. When I call data centralization, I'm not speaking of data consolidation. I'm talking of data centralization. The whole enterprise data coming at one place, various forms of data which lie at one place for us to exploit it. Expertise amortization. Expertise which can get depreciated, expertise which will drive a lot of cost savings for us as we go forward. DevOps. DevOps, I think most of us know, a lot of money is spent on IT, how to automate IT, and that will drive a lot of innovative stuff because IT has really started looking at, DevOps has really started looking at how do I do a service automation and can do a lot of cost savings beyond just the provisioning and making benefits out of it. Service assurances. As we mature into the cloud, we will see that services, what we offer, will surely we have committed assurances aligned to it. So what is data centralization? So it was not there earlier. So if you look at any enterprise, if you walk into any CIO's office, he will at least have 5 points of data, 5 data which are available at 5 different places. He does not know how he can exploit these 5 data centers. So going forward, we will, for the first time, we may have a different forms of data which can be centralized at one place. When I say different forms of data, I'm not talking about databases or something. It could be any form, XML, metadata, which will be coming together, and I will be able to see that data. I'll be able to visualize the data. This centralized data will expose to me in some way where I can have a look at it. Okay, so data centralization will drive a lot of innovations as we go forward. Liquidating expertise. The average IT industry, if you walk into any enterprise in India or worldwide, one of the skills which is always short of is IT skills. And I take that stuff on a face value because we have many operating systems, we have many type of middleware. Every middleware, there is no standardization of middleware. If you say whether it's an app server, we have at least 5 to 6 type of app servers. We have 5 to 6 type of databases. We expect an IT worker who is working in an IT shop to know at least 2 to 3 different type of skills. Is that possible? I don't think so. Going forward, that may not be possible for us to do. So as soon as folks start moving, as soon as you bring in the automation, cloud will amortize that skills itself. Going forward, one of the cost benefits which you are going to get, the whole economical equation you are going to save the cost is on how much I can save when I amortize a labor cost from my IT shop. Okay, so this is now becoming, this already has outperformed. So when you move something on a per use basis onto a public cloud, this is already has outperformed what we do in a centralized cloud, in a private cloud environment also. So we have a data. I said you have a data centralized. You have something which can give you a view to that data, an insight into that data, and if that comes into picture, you can look at it, a pattern coming out of it. You will have a new tools which will enable you to find it. A simple example could be, most of the transport vehicles now in the public transport vehicle like Volvo buses in Bangalore are fitted with the GPS data, GPS points. If that data I'm able to see, the CDR data I'm able to see, I'm able to write a tool on top of it to understand how I can predict which data moves, which buses moving from which location to which location, I can visualize it. I have that data to be visualized on various type of devices in front of me, It will give me a great insights into it. It can help me to plan my leaving office time. It can help me to provide a lot of stuff which I can utilize it much better. So the whole intelligence, the insight, and the profit I make out of it in form of time, in form of dollars saved, is going to drive things. And for that, we will need a lots of business tools, intelligent tools coming out of it. And these tools, which are very are right now doing it from 30,000 view, you will see these tools getting developed specifically for the industry, specifically for a sector as we go forward. Professional IT is now coming to small businesses. So let me give you an example. Suppose I walk into a small town where we have a industry, let's say a cloth export industry in south of India, and I say I have to work for an ERP solution for them. Right now, if you go, they generally do a paperwork. They do most of the whole automation is based on the paper processes, what they do. If I'm able to work around with the association of these industry and set up a cloud which provides an ERP which is basically customized for their use, okay, which is customized for their use, it will help me to do it. It will help. Basically, there is innovation available for me. For the industry person, it is that he is able to do all the paperwork on automated stuff, and it can drive much better productivity for him. Has this been done? Yes. Some of the SMB clouds are trying to exploit some of these use cases, but as we move forward, there would be cost of providing services for these small use cases will go down. Right now, they will have to go to a big ERP provider. They will have to invest on a generic ERP. They will have to spend time on the services for them to customize it for their industry. That will all vanish away. So the whole idea of getting IT to small businesses will try to impact a lot of innovation. What innovation are we doing for a specific sector? Let's say education sector, where we would like to drive a specific ERP for a chain of the schools, which is very common at least in the growth markets, where we can define what it means to have IT for them. The quality of services would go up because the provider of these services would give an end-to-end solution. He will be responsible for last mile connection. He'll be responsible for the ERP, and the industry which has the basic core competency is something else, would try to spend time on the core competency than spending a time on IT. So if suppose after doing all that stuff, I just provide, as a service provider, a small app store in front of it, where he can go, he can download the apps from this app store, as a service provider I'm doing, and start making. It's something like I'm providing, let's say, an open office package or Apache Office project for this person, so that whenever he wants to document something, he is able to use this app store, download it for some time, use it, and push it off. Right? So these are small innovations will come to the small businesses in very near future. So why is enterprise data, which I talked about, the whole data centralization, is very hard? Why is this data harder? So there is a lots of it. And at least any enterprise will have a terabytes of data, if not a petabyte of data. It comes in a various forms. It will come in emails. It will come in some meeting notices, calendar invites, and blah 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 stuff. It will come in many contexts for it. The context is very important when you start mining it, and it comes with the complex permissions for security and privacy. Some will have your enterprise confidential, something will be a project confidential, and other stuff. So it's very hard for us to, if you don't have a proper mining tool, to put a context to all this data which is lying there in an enterprise. So what is the first point which I discussed here on why it's difficult, it's harder? Legal and corporate documents, that's one of the types of documents. There are customer files which you cannot share beyond your project arena. If you move, you have to delete those. There are technical confidential strategy plans which cannot go outside the organization. There is some of the information, reputation information, some of the market intelligence reports which we are doing. It could come in various forms, pictures. It could be in a WAV file, some presentation WAV files, some audio files of some the plans, the roadmaps of some projects which have been recorded for some of the teams kept there. It can come in various forms for you, and as usual, some of the readable formats. It comes in various contexts. When I talk about context, it could be informal in the same of emails. It could be very formal stuff saying that, okay, this is the please find attached, this is the design document for blah, blah, blah stuff. It could come in the meeting plannings. You can say, okay, this meeting was done. It could come in some events arranged, some roadmap strategy meetings. So these are work product documents, some sensitive business critical documents. So these are various. If you start, we started with the amount of the documents, what we have, the type of the documents, and then the context of that type of the documents. So it's basically a web we are creating of each document. And imagine if an organization has got terabytes of data, how much data it would be which we have to mine through to get really intelligent insight into it. And why it is secured for the complex permissions. It's the content is only meant for me. The content could be only meant for the team relationships, management relationship, customer relationship. We have a lot of documents which, as an organization, my organization shares with our customers under some NDAs and other stuff. So I do not want that document to go around to my competition, which also could be part of that customer. So this whole context is very important to keep this whole data into place, right? We have the data which is going beyond the terabytes. We have a data which has got different contexts. We have a data which has got a different security levels, and still we have to mine that intelligently so it gives me an insight into it. And that's the big opportunity which I feel will come up. And whether it's a big data problem, whether it's some of other business intelligence tool problem, but that could drive a lot of cloud-based technologies as we go forward. Okay. So is it possible? I feel it's possible, because how much data does Google have? About 5 petabytes, and it's growing in terabytes every day. So if that data it's able to mine and put together for you, who are your friends, who are your partners and all that stuff, if I can mine my Twitter or mine some of my connections in social media and say who I'm connected with and how this whole relationship is going to grow, I'm sure an enterprise can do this, the whole mining of the data which currently lies with them in archival, and really can find out some of great insight which is not done till now. It's not doing, it just gets, for some mandatory reason, it just kept in some archival forms. Has IT coped with more complex problems? Yes. IT has coped with larger complex problems of what I'm putting together. So there easily it can build up a solution. A lot of specialized expertise must be built up, because what I'm talking about is a data which lies in emails. Most of the data which I have discussed lies in emails. And this email stuff, there are a lot of way this data is stored inside the mails itself, because there are a lot of way you read the emails. And then to do that, you will need some specific person to go and look at this, with a specialized expertise, go and look at that data. But give me, if only there is some logic to use it very intelligently. Can I use this whole data which is presented to me very intelligently, brought to me in some format which I can go and insights with? So if anybody of you have played with myeyes.com, which is one of the a view or a visualization stuff on the Twitter and other stuff, you will see how graphically it helps me. If you have seen the heat maps which is developed for various reasons, heat maps started getting developed for showing more of a relationship between the people. Now we have a joint of few other people who have done the heat mapping of their whole cloud infrastructure which they provision to really go and find out which server in their whole cloud stuff is failing. And when you try to do that, you are basically trying to visualize the data which is already there. Right? These are all visualization technology. To do that visualization, to put that visualization in front of you, you need an intelligent insight into the data in front of you. So, central repository is the key. Is there a central repository? Most of the customers I have met in last 3 years do not have. I would not say do not have a central repository, because in different phases of their growing of infrastructure, they have put up a different solutions. And when they have put up a different solutions, they do have a different set of solutions being done on there. Now, when you talk about the central repository, cloud is going to act more like a delivery model for them. Cloud is not going to be the dog here. Cloud is going to be just a delivery model where this whole data will be there and cloud will be taken as a ubiquitous thing which is doing there. What you need is basically apps and app store. Apps which have got a unified APIs. The data is the data. I know the data has exported some APIs. I'm able to take care of the APIs and go. And now, if that apps has given, can I basically run a data incentive app which can give me an insight into this whole data. So the whole concept which Vamsi talked about, the private cloud, the public cloud, where the app should be in the private cloud and the public cloud. Look at this from the centralized data stuff. There will be an external apps which is going to using the internal data and going to develop some visualization for the internal data on these APIs. So for the whatever data you have, you need to have aggregate for visualization of aggregating statistics. You need to have some tool which is going to do it. Okay, you will need to have primitives provided, wherein provided basically to mine that archive. Now you have done all that stuff, but only problem as we grow will come from bandwidth, and only problem should come from the quantity of the data, right? Bandwidth, we claim to have the last mile connection in most of the cases, but bandwidth can be a real deterrent to adoption of most of this stuff. Data intensive apps, I suggest wherever you have a data intensive apps, you put it inside your cloud. You put it inside your private clouds, or where you do not have to go ahead and start a lot of communication. Okay, you can do a lot of inbuilt permit deep analysis of enormous data in that sense. So I'm just going to point out to one of the slides I found on the internet on the Twitter's social media's connection. So if you look at this whole data, this is how the person has got interconnected across the globe. And we have just picked up, the whole thing was to pick up using my eyes. It has picked up the whole internet connections, the whole connections for the Twitter, who is he following, who is following him, and has plotted that out here. So if we can do it for a single person, imagine how much insight we may have if we have for the enterprise what we do. So look at the organizational matchmaking, which can give from the enterprise. The organizational matchmaking, if there are 3 people, let's say they are working on a very different type of subject like quantum computing, and they are at different parts of the globe. Now, how do you connect these 3 people? In my organization, which is quite huge, I do not understand, except in my division, who is working on what, generally. And to mine that data, if I have some archive-based whole mining session, I can look at that data, I can look at the tags, I can mine it and keep it there to give it. They haven't met, these folks haven't met, they haven't interacted with, but our intent is looking at the data which is in front of us, try to connect them saying that, okay, you need 3 to interact because you have a common interest of work. And we can do it, which is really not possible with the volume of people we have today. The second thing is we have DevOps. So what we are trying to do with the transforming and development of operations is basically we are trying to deliver new and enhanced business services very fast. And whole business services, when we move it, we are trying to build engines which can help the transformation. As this whole system matures in about a year or 2, with a lot of providers spending a lot of times on DevOps, you will see a lot of innovations happening here. What we used to develop using simple workflows, now people are talking how some of the business process tools can be integrated here, how we can get some of the features what we had from some of the components of a process servers and all that can be built onto it, so that we can build a person who is not IT, he's IT challenged, does not know about the IT stuff, can define a whole process, and that process can be enabled onto the cloud. And that will be very innovative way as we take the DevOps version. We have been talking about the whole stuff about workloads. So next, focus should be on the workload categorization. When I say a workload categorization, we will see a specific workload to drive e-commerce applications, specific workloads to drive financial applications. And these workloads will get started focusing. When we start focusing on these specific type of workloads, we will have to drive a lot of innovation through this, how these workloads, because most of the workloads will have operating system as a different virtual appliance, the middleware a different virtual appliance, the database and the app. There are 4 or 5 interconnects with them. So how do we integrate them? How do we simply create them, and how we dispense it as a one go, and they're elastic and scalable in its own time. So the last one was service assurance. So when we talk about the service assurance, if generally most of the cloud providers right now do not sign out any service assurance as such. So we will have to go and see how I drive the utilization of virtual infrastructure. So when I drive it, can I commit something that if I take this whole stuff you move to the cloud, I'll be able to give you so much of returns. So when you do that, how do I isolate the problem of my server network and storage utilization? How do my cloud is running out of capacity? Can you predict when I can get the new servers? So capacity analytics, which will become a very major subject of research and some of the tooling across it to understand how I do this whole stuff. The bottom line is the more consolidate archives we do, the more benefits we are going to get out of it. DevOps would demand automation and a simplification, so we should be ready for those. Enterprises can't afford to ignore cloud anymore. We have got a cloud, if you have got a cloud infrastructure in there, in what form? In a simple form also, please exploit it, but don't bet your efficiency and your optimization on it. Okay, I think that was my last slide, and I'm getting booted out. So, but I'll take 1 or 2 questions, but I'm available for the whole day here.